This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and let me tell you what, we have a heck of a guest on tonight's show. A little inside baseball for you. Before we're recording this opening segment, we had a chance to sit down with Coach Ronnie Palmer, former Arizona linebacker, and it's one of the longest interviews I think we've done in quite a while, and really good stuff. You know, it didn't feel like it. It was really good stuff, Shane. And normally, I don't tease an interview like this at the start, but I was really impressed with Ronnie and great to catch up with him.
Yeah, you'll want to take a listen for sure, because it wasn't just, we asked him questions about, joining the Arizona staff and his thoughts on the upcoming season and the coaching staff and the players. But we also asked him about his time. I mean, he was a head coach before he came to Arizona as an assistant, and asked him about that and what it takes to build a winner, his time at Arizona under Mike Stoops and turning the program around. And like we've said so many times, some of our best interviews aren't really interviews. It's just three guys, shooting the what and just talking about, Ronnie's remembering his time on the field, remembering our time watching him in the stands and just reminiscing. So it was a really good combination of things. And I think you're going to feel better about the football program after this interview than you did before. Number one, because Ronnie's a great guy and a great addition. And number two, he had a lot of good things to say. And he's definitely a great addition to the staff.
One more show after this one, Shane, where we're not picking games. I'm getting excited to get back into it. And then it's, 7 months of fun between football and basketball. So get ready. We're about to, just enjoy these next couple weeks because it's going to get fast and furious. All right, let's start in buy or sell. Let's play an over-under game per se. Offensive points per game average this season. I averaged the last two seasons together, and the number was 27.5. You taking the over or the under?
Well, they averaged just under 22 points per game last year, and I think that's the more telling statistic. I would take the under slightly. I actually went back and forth with this. It can be better this year, but I think if they're going to hit that number, they'll likely need to put up some big numbers in their first couple of games because they don't play some of the worst defenses in the Big 12 like West Virginia. So I think something closer to 25, 26 points is more realistic. So I am not a gambler like you, but I would take the under. Although I think they'll hit 30 at least a couple times in conference play and hopefully at least twice in non-conference. But I don't see them getting to 27.5 based on what they did last year. I think they're going to be better, but not that much better.
I just don't look at anyone in the Big 12, Shane, that's that great defensively. I think Arizona's going to be in a lot of shootouts, and I'm going to lean towards the over. I wouldn't, bet it, and we'll talk a little betting later in the show. I work at a betting.
We'll tide you over until we actually get to pick
until we get to pick games. You'll enjoy that. But I'm gonna lean over. I think Arizona averages somewhere in the 28 to 30 points a game mark. However, on defense, the average the last 2 years is 26.5. You taking the over in 26.5 points average given up per game or under?
Well, again, I think last year's stats are more relevant than the previous year, and they gave up almost 32 points per game last year. So I got to go with the over. I don't think the defense, and Ronnie's had some great things to say. I don't think they're going to be much better this season. I think they'll be better over time. I think it's going to take a while. You got, there's still a lot of new guys, especially up front. You've got a lot of new faces in the coaching staff and a shuffling of the coaching staff on top of that. And then you factor in game. They got to go to Iowa State. They got to go to ASU. They play at home against Kansas State. I think they're probably going to allow around what they allowed last season. I think we're going to end up feeling better about the defense, the future of the defense, but I think it's going to take more than a year to fix.
I am gonna hammer the over. I just think this team's gonna be susceptible to giving up a lot of points at times. I think that number. I think you're gonna see a team that's gonna be in a lot of shootouts. The games are gonna be long because a lot of points are gonna be scored. I believe in Seth Daigie's offense, and I'm not saying that I don't believe in Danny Gonzalez's defense. I just think the Big 12 is an offensive league. You're gonna see points galore.
Yeah.
Bet the over in most Arizona games, and I have a feeling you'll probably win. So I'm gonna lean towards that over 26.5, which obviously is the combined average of the last 2 years. Speaking of football, last week we talked about some things that the Arizona marketing department has implemented, lower concession prices. Well, New Mexico, who was Arizona's first opponent last year, and they got Luke Weissong, wide receiver from New Mexico. They are doing a thing where kids under 12 get in free as long as a full price ticket is purchased. I Buy or sell, Shane. This is something that Arizona needs to emulate now.
I will buy that it's something they probably should. If nothing else, as an experiment this year. I think it would only help in terms of attendance, and I don't think Arizona would lose much in terms of revenue. And I think you could increase attendance. You think about it this way: if the cost of four tickets was holding back a family of four, parents and two kids under 12, if it was holding them back from attending a game because just four tickets just costs a lot, but that same family would attend if half the tickets were free, then you're gaining two more paying customers and four more people who will make noise during the game and hopefully help the home team win. That's the whole point of having home field advantage in the first place. You multiply that by a couple thousand times, and that could make a big difference. Now, that sounds good in theory. Don't know it's going to shake out that way the real world. I'm interested to see how New Mexico's attendance is impacted by this, and I'd like us to revisit this because I think it's a great question that you bring up. But I think, if you were to combine something like that with the reduced concession prices that we talked about last week, then all of a sudden, if you're a family of four, attending an Arizona football game is a lot more affordable than it was last year. Maybe half the cost altogether than it was last year when you talk about reduced concessions and free tickets. So I think that's something that can make a difference. And if, guess what? If you start winning some football games, and maybe those fans will come back again the following year, even if you do away with those, one of those incentives.
All right, so to me, this is a no-brainer. You have at Arizona Stadium on I think it's what is it, the west side? No, the east side. I'm sorry, my directions. You have that huge upper deck, which, I mean, if it was me, I'd probably tarp it and I would make sure that people filled the lower bowl. But it's giant. If you're gonna keep it open and not tarp it, like, sell tickets in there, sell 2 for 1 in there. Just get people to go. Get people, as you said, that wouldn't normally go to games, put them in the seats. It's imperative. You got to do something, and that's my suggestion. I love what New Mexico's doing. They're trying something creative. Much respect to them for doing that. All right, let's move on to college basketball. There was a list that was put out by On3 ranking the Big 12 coaches. Number 1, Calvin Sampson. 2, Bill Self. 3, Scott Drew. 4, TJ Otzelberger. 5, Grant McCasland. 6, Tommy Lloyd. Bobby Hurley is at 11, for those of you who are wondering. Shane, is Tommy Lloyd at 6 among, however you want to justify this list? Is that a fair ranking among Big 12 coaches? Buy or sell?
I'll buy that it's not an outrageous ranking. I guess it partly depends on if you're gauging the past or projecting the future, or a combination thereof. I have no problem with the top three. If you're looking at just the best coaches in the conference versus what they've accomplished to this point, I think the top three are reasonable. I don't know if I would change the order, but I would probably slot Tommy Lloyd fourth. Because I'm just not sure what warrants TJ Otzelberger being higher based on his track record. Tommy has a .772 win percentage in his 4 seasons at Arizona. Otzelberger has a 679 win percentage at Iowa State during the same time period. And he went below 500 in his 2 years at UNLV before that. Hasn't made a deeper run in the NCAA tournament than Tommy Lloyd has either, because maybe you're thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe they got to a Final Four or Elite Eight. Didn't. So I'm not sure about that one. I think Grant McCasland has a better case, but he has a 718 win percentage during 2 seasons at Texas Tech, small sample size. They made a run to the Elite Eight last year. Really should have gone to the Final Four. And he's been a head coach longer, but I don't see anything on his resume that makes it significantly more impressive. So, and just in terms of the future, again, this is where the bias really comes in, I would say. But I guess it's a question: who would you rather have? Would you rather have Tommy Lloyd or either of those two guys? I'd rather have Tommy. I think that he's probably has the brightest future. And by the way, I'd also slot Tad Boyle ahead of Bobby Hurley. Hurley's 11th and Tad Boyle's 12th on this list. I think Boyle deserves to be a little higher than Bobby does.
Tad Boyle is right as far as I'm concerned on this list. Not a fan either way. So, past Tommy Lloyd, it's like that list. And Kevin Young at 7, I think is fair. Jamie Dixon, 8, had some success back in the day at Pitt. Yeah. So you can't really argue with the top 3. Kelvin Sampson, took his team to the national championship game. Bill Selfs won a couple of titles. Scott Drew won a title. So you can't really argue with that. I think you're right that Otzelberger and Grant McCasland, I haven't seen enough. McCasland, has Texas Tech really done a lot more than Arizona over the last 4 years? Especially with the budget.
They just steal one of Arizona's assistants.
Great. But
yeah.
Outside of that, I think Tommy Lloyd, between, I'd say 4 or 5. I'm not sure which one you probably move down. I'm probably moving McCasland down. Maybe some Texas Tech fans will get mad at me. And maybe you move Otzelberger. You're right. Otzelberger hasn't really done a lot. So, yeah, I'd put Tommy Lloyd probably 4 on this list. I agree with you. I think
very subjective list, and I think KU fans would probably be outraged that Self isn't number 1. And you can argue that as well. But yeah, this kind of list makes you realize how many good coaches there are in this league. But a lot of them are just kind of getting their start, at least at a power school, and Tommy's one of them. But if you're just, I feel like that tier 1, Sampson, Self, Drew, tier 2. I think the tiers are right. Otzelberger, McCasland, Lloyd. I would rather have Tommy than the other 2 guys. But again, that's my biased red and blue opinion.
Why wait for rewards, Wildcat fans? At Harrah's Auction Casino, your play today means free play tomorrow. Sign up for Caesars Rewards, play your favorite slots, and unlock up to $25 in next day free slot play. Plus, your rewards go beyond the casino. Enjoy dining, entertainment, hotel stays, and more at 50-plus destinations nationwide. Bear down, play today, get rewarded tomorrow. Only at Harrah's Auction Casino. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Know when to stop before you start. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 or 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Visit the Caesars Rewards Center for details. We always appreciate the sponsorship of Harrah's Auction Casino and look forward to being with them for quite a while. And we have a sponsor, actually, additionally, that is coming back on board with us closer to the season. We'll talk more about them in the coming weeks, but we are always glad for Harrah's Auction Casino. Coming up next, it's Ronnie Palmer here on Wildcat Country. All right, Shane, we welcome to the show for the first time in nearly 5 years of doing this show. I think we're running up on the anniversary here. Ronnie Palmer, who's now an assistant coach on the defensive side of the football for the University of Arizona, formerly just an awesome player for the Wildcats back in the Mike Stoops era. His last game, I believe, Coach, was the Vegas Bowl 2008. The coldest game that I have ever personally been to. Snow on the field in the end zone. Shane and I have talked about it a lot. Before we get into this year's team, what do you remember about the 2008 Las Vegas Bowl?
Just that, cold. I never practiced in the snow, never played a game around that type of atmosphere. But what a great year. What a great way to end the senior year in that season, man. We had a very young team, except for my old behind. Everybody was from the Brooks Reeds to the Gronkowskis, Earl Mitchells. Even Big Game Nick was a scout team quarterback. We had such a young team, and we were so excited. I think it had been like 9 years since we had reached a bowl game, and fitting. BYU was the team we had played. It was pretty much a rivalry now. It was our 3rd time playing them. Very, very big team, a 10-plus win team. Beck, Bronco, Mendenhall. It was such a loaded team, and they were very old. So our speed took over. Mike Thomas took over. Willie Tui Thomas, some of those good names. Willie fittingly finished running a touchdown,
right,
instead of throwing one. And our defense got after it. I think that was a fun thing. We were a top 25 defense. And there was a lot of close games that year, but to end it with a bang was such a special exclamation mark to a college career.
Follow-up question on that, Ronnie. Do you remember the very last play of that game?
Was it the throw to Mike T?
Yeah, to get him the record.
Absolutely. I didn't know he was that close to the record.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of ironic to see a screen like that thrown, but it was such it was such a wild week anyway. You know, if you know anything about our team, it was very fitting for us to finish our season in Vegas. But we had so much fun from our staff on down. That game was packed. I mean, for it to be that cold and that the proximity of that game was amazing. Just to be able to finish that last play for Mike, what a special moment for him and Tui and Stoops and the whole game.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about the game before that toward the end of our conversation because we talked about that. We actually met at the Bear Down Takeover in Scottsdale, and then as we're talking, Brent Brennan comes up and puts an arm around me and says, "You need to have this guy on your show." And so, absolutely. So I appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy during training camp. You were the head coach at Monterey Peninsula College. You won 4 straight conference titles there, named Coach of the Year each time. What brought you back to Tucson?
That's a loaded question, man. How much time do you have?
much time as much time as Zoom allows.
You know what? 5 years as a head coach. You know, we had that bonus COVID year that everybody remembers. It was such a great time to figure out the coaching profession a little bit deeper. My wife's from Monterey. I had no interest in going back to Monterey except for the beautiful beach and the scenery. But it was a calling to become a head coach at 33. Was a unique opportunity that I couldn't pass. The Division I ranks is pretty cutthroat, and to get that opportunity to coach and to lead young men and give them those opportunities was a special journey. And we had fun. We had success, and success can be measured anyway. I think for me it was to see young men leave at a better place than where I found them. We sent a lot of kids to Power 4 schools, Group of 5, D2, NAIA, fire department, wherever they wanted to go. That was a remarkable experience I'll never forget. And it was about the people. It wasn't about the league. It wasn't about the wins and losses. Sure, we won some games, and I'll never take credit. I think we had some amazing, amazing kids, staff, and we had fun. This last year was an 11-0 year, and it was a school history moment, and I just enjoyed the process. The pursuit for that last championship was everything. And my wife and I, we sat back around the fire a lot of those post games and just talked about the journey more than the score. But after it was all said and done, some things happened, and we look back after every year and try to make some smart decisions for our family and for our journey. And we always look back at where we've been in this game, this beautiful game. It's taken us so many places. And my wife she was a stud softball player and probably a better player than I ever was. So we understand the game of sports and what it does to lives. And this was a unique opportunity to come back home. Let's just say that.
And I know, certainly, coaching a Power 4 program is a different animal compared to where you came from. But just what did you learn? What could you take away from your role at Monterey in terms of what it takes to build a championship caliber team?
Yeah, no doubt. I think what I'll take from being a head coach, being a head coach makes you a great assistant coach, and I think Coach Brennan can respect that. Coach Gonzalez. Coach Alonzo Carter. There's a lot of great coaches and great people on our staff. And just being a head coach and having the responsibility of 80, 90 kids and another 10 coaches and support staff. And now all of a sudden, I'm an assistant D-line coach working under Coach Joe Salavea, working under Coach Danny Gonzalez. I can look bigger picture and not look through a straw. I think that's the best way to describe it. Before, when I was just a GA and an assistant coach and maybe a special teams coordinator, defense coordinator, I always looked through the straw. Like, how can I just do my job? Where now I'm in a position where I can watch Coach Brennan and feel his energy, or see what Coach Gonzalez is doing and understand more big picture things.
All right, taking myself off mute here. That's good to do. Hey, Coach, all right, so you're back. Arizona's defense last year was terrible. I mean, the year before they were pretty good, but last year they stunk. Why are we going to see an improvement this year? What do you notice thus far?
Sure. I think anytime you have a culture change or you have a shift in staffs and players, you're going to feel growing pains. I think that's natural. I think very rare you can see a team just reload. It's a very unique team, just sitting around in the springtime. New defense coordinator. I know he was there last year, Coach Gonzalez, but now he's in charge of the defense. New special teams coordinator, new offensive coordinator, going into second year for Coach Brennan. You have new pieces and you're starting to find chemistry. And I think the biggest thing going in spring, summer, and now fall camp, you feel a vibe, you feel camaraderie, you feel just so much togetherness. And we only have a short amount of time. So it's so important that all the pieces are being put together. And let's not forget the biggest piece, Coach Joe Salavea coming back home. Just seeing what he's done from a recruiting standpoint, from a culture standpoint. And then there's so many OG faces from Chuck Cecil to Brandon Sanders, Bobby Wade, and they bring that vibe of what Bear Down means. And then myself, just to probably, I think I'm the first Stoops staff member to join this staff since 2011. So those are cool vibes just to bring it back and just every year it's can you find a way to get over the hump with those fourth quarter games, those short games, and early in the season, can you find the dynamic of your team? As a head coach, I felt that my first year. I didn't know what I was doing. I just to call it what it is. But when you find your narrative and you find the way that you want to run this given year, that's what makes wins and losses. It's always those 3 or 4 plays or those leaders that are playing. I mean, us coaches, we're not playing. So at the end of the day, we're the biggest fans because we have the best seat in the house. But now we try to help and critique and mold and prepare these young men. But shoot, they're the ones making the plays.
We had Danny Gonzalez on sometime during this offseason. The months all blend together, but we had him on several months ago. What's it like working for him, and how can you describe his intensity as a coach during practice?
Wow. Yeah. Danny Gonzalez, he's the definition of juice, man. He has a spark about him. I couldn't even tell you how old he is because he's still running 4 or 5 miles a day. He still talks 100 minutes, 100 words a minute, and he is so energetic. And I think the defense and our staff is a reflection of him. He brings great leadership and great, obviously, experience in his background, and he has the pedigree to prove it. So it's fun. Long story short, I'm honored to get around him. I have a lot to learn. I've already learned so much from him. I think we have similar styles too in our aggressive behavior. As a head coach, I was all about being aggressive, having movement-based defenses, and really applying pressure. And we're going to stop the run. I think that's the exciting thing about what he brings and what he has brought everywhere he's been.
Including ASU, but we'll forgive him for that if he does a great job.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about those years too much. Although a big shout out, Herm Edwards is good people's, and he has Monterey ties too. So I don't dislike Danny for that, but that's we're not going to talk about that team up north.
Fair enough. So you obviously you're an Arizona alum. Joe Salavea is. Brent Brennan's not an alum, but he certainly had ties to university as well. Is there something to that? I mean, we talk about like fans getting excited about having an alum come back to coach their team as an assistant or a head coach. Is that relevant in any way to what you do? I mean, obviously Tucson, the university. Is there a benefit to being a player in this program?
Absolutely. I think there's you can take it both ways. It can be a positive, it can be a negative, but I take it as a tremendous honor to be back and to be able to wear this shirt and to look back at my jersey and go to campus and see the kids. They're living a different life than I lived 20 years ago. But to see these young men go through the same process that I went through, and there is a level of pride and excitement and energy. You feel it. I've been to, let's call the coaching profession what it is. You have an opportunity to go to a lot of different stops, and there's never been a stop feel like this one right now. So I'm excited every day. I don't know what day it is right now, to be honest, or how far we are in fall camp, but I do know this: the energy that Big Joe brings, or Coach Wade. We even have young support staff coaches, Josh Baker, that just finished playing last year, and it's the same energy. You see guys that want to be here, and at the end of the day, it is about people. I mean, this is a people, a service-driven business, and finding ways to find good people around you, to have alumni and have support from the community is vital in this day of college football.
Yeah, especially right now. Tell us a little bit more about Brent Brennan. Eric and I have gotten a chance to know him a little bit. We had him on the show. We talked to him at the event in Scottsdale. Very candid conversation. Seems like a genuine guy. I think a lot of the fans are the jury's still out as far as, he's a great guy. He's good, really relationships, but we'll have to wait and see as far as him being a head coach at a power school. What do you want fans to know about Brent Brennan and why he's the right guy to turn this program around and bring it back to where it needs to be?
Yeah, when I think of Brent Brennan, and my time with him has been very limited. I was just hired in February, but I've been able to watch him from afar as the head coach at Monterey Peninsula College. I'd always go to San Jose State and watch practice. I'd send recruits. He'd have his coaching socials. So I'd always watch him more from a head coach to head coach perspective, just trying to learn and take something from him. But one thing I always recognized and really found very attractive as far as somebody you want to work for is the way he treated people. Very down to earth, very kind, but he has a spark. Don't get it twisted. He is a coach, and I've seen the energy. I've seen the amount of passion he pours into not only his staff and his support, but the kids. And just ask what the kids think about him. I think that's more important than my opinion of him. I've seen the way he treats the janitor. I've seen the way he talks to the lunch ladies when we're at BDK in the mornings. He is a genuine person, and he wants to see this place be at a Rose Bowl. I think that's always his goal, and I think he's that type of coach that people will run through a wall for. And I sometimes I wish I still had pads on, because I listen to him talk. And I listened to him speak, and it's like, man, no shade on Mike Stoops, love him, because Mike Stoops is my guy. He changed my life. But Mike Stoops, I couldn't have a great conversation with him as a player. I was a young freshman, sophomore, junior, and I was a 4-year starter here at Arizona, but it was hard to have a genuine conversation of how I'm feeling and go to his office. You don't need an appointment for Coach Brennan's office. That's a player, that's a coach, and he cares so much, and you feel that energy, and I felt it since I've been back. So that's in my short time. I know I'm still have so much to build with him, but I do know the kids love him to death, and he is a very energetic, passionate coach, just like Coach Gonzalez, just like a lot of guys on our staff.
It's crazy, Ronnie, is that, I graduated in 2005. You started playing then. And I remember, I've been to most Arizona games over the last 25 years, drive down from the Phoenix area and those late night trips back up. But I remember watching you, and you were a max effort guy at the linebacker position. Who on this defense, at least thus far that you've seen in practice, is most reminiscent to you? Who reminds you of you, let's say?
Ooh. That's tough. Max effort. I appreciate the kind words. I was limited. I wasn't as fast as some of the other guys, but I worked my butt off so I could help us win some games. I think Trey Smith is probably as 100 as we like to say as it gets on our defense. Definitely a kid that pours out and you don't have to even know anything about him, but just put on the tape. You'll see a very high volume, very aggressive, very, very passionate player just from the film. You don't even have to meet him. You don't have to talk to him. I'd say Trey Smith is a very not vocal leader, but he is a leader as I was back in 2008 for sure. And he's the seniors.
When Shane and I have former players on, we always like to ask them about different games. I know Shane's going to do that with his next line of question. All right, outside of the Holiday Bowl, or that's the Vegas Bowl. See, I read your profile, I got in my head. Outside of the game. Yeah, we're not talking about that. We were all there. It was terrible the next year. All right, so outside of the Vegas Bowl, outside of the ASU game, which Shane's going to ask you about, give me a game from your playing career that stands out as one of your favorites.
Ooh, yeah, that's great. I would say one of my favorites would be redshirt freshman year. We played a top 10 UCLA team with Maurice Drew, Mercedes Lewis. They had a who's who on their offense. They had some All-Americans on defense, and they were on their way to the Rose Bowl. And we had some growing pains Stoops' first year or two, and I think it was one of my first couple starts, and it was a high tackle game, and I have a nice little battle scar, a little broken finger to remember that game by, and it was kind of a coming out party for the Stoops era.
52-14, I believe, and it was the last game that I ever sat in the student section, even though I had recently graduated. That's what I remember about how awesome that game was.
The real question is, did you rush the field with everybody else?
I did not. The last game I rushed the field for was 2004 ASU. You weren't there yet, but that was my last game, football game as a student. And Arizona with Richard Kovalchuk beat Shane, obviously beat ASU with Andrew Walter, Sam Keller.
That's a great game. I actually was there. I was a true freshman. I was on the sidelines that game. That was wow. That was a great experience. That's when I knew there was something special brewing.
Who was it? There was a tight end for ASU who dropped a pass on fourth down. It sealed the win. I don't remember the name of the guy.
I remember, it's funny because now we have all this technology to take pictures when you're on the field. We didn't have that, but I have the most blurry picture of me with a couple friends on the field. That game I will never forget. It was a daytime game. And it was like, finally we won, Mike Stoops is here. And then, there's a roller coaster after that, but we had some good times.
Yeah, there was a lot of ups and downs with our years. I think Brandon Sanders and I were just talking about that not too long ago. There was some close games, some tough fought games with, USC or Cal or Oregon, and we'd always show up, but then we'd miss the hump until that final year, and then a couple years after that. But that game was that ASU game was something special. One of my best friends, BJ Denard, was a true freshman, and he made a big kind of diving catch and to get us a big first down late in the game, and it was a kind of a special moment. That's a big game.
Shane, I gotta interject here. I want to ask Ronnie about one more. So I remember, and I'm just giving personally, I was at some kind of, it was like a Hall of Fame dinner on a Friday night, and I was sitting with a guy at a table who's a former major league relief pitcher. I had never heard of him, but apparently he was successful at the Expos back in the day. And I said, tomorrow Arizona is going to beat a top 10 team in Cal. And it was 2006, Arizona Cal homecoming. Antoine Cason picked off Nate Longshore and ran it back. What do you remember about that game?
Oh, I remember a lot about that game. That was a homecoming game in Cal, with obviously Marshawn Lynch and Deshaun Jackson, and you could name a couple other All-Americans that they had on their team. Twan had a big pick six. We found some rhythm. We were actually down 2 scores going into the second half of that game. And Deshaun Jackson, I still couldn't quite touch his cleat when he caught like a dig route and just took off and had a punt return for like 90-some yards. But the best memory for me that game, I had the game sealing interception that kind of made the ESPN, I forget, top performance or whatever. But it was a big tackle game, and probably one of my top 5 memories as a player at Arizona. Yeah, good times.
Ronnie, you understand as well as anyone what it takes to turn a program around, because you were part of that process with Coach Stoops from '05 to '08, and that '05 was rough. '06, '07, you almost get over the hump in terms of getting to a bowl game. In '08, you finally get there. What can you take from your time playing at Arizona, being part of that process, to maybe as like a blueprint maybe for helping get this program back on track?
Well, there's a lot of things, and I'm no expert when it comes to just flipping a program, but I know it takes good people. You have to have people bought in to the agenda, and you have to have great recruiting classes. I think make no stretch about it. Arizona football, when the Gronkowskis and Earl Mitchells and Foles and guys like that came around, it elevated the room, and I think that's something that Coach Salaveer and I talk about daily. We constantly recruit. There's a number of four-star players that we're trying to bring in the trenches, and I think it's a collaborative effort. I think the way we recruit right now is top notch, and it has to continue. And there's no off period. So recruiting, and not just the dollars and cents of it. You can control what you can control, but I think it's selling yourself as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a coach, and really letting kids, young men, and parents know, and families know, like, who you are. And I think you have to be vulnerable to do that, and I think it takes special people, and that's to me is top notch, and it has been since I left Arizona and since I became a coach. I think resumes speak loudly, but it's about the people.
Yeah. All right, I got two more for you, Ronnie. I appreciate your time, but I want to get these in. Eric alluded to it. My favorite ever Territorial Cup game was 2008. My favorite play from that game was Mike Thomas's punt return for a touchdown, which essentially sealed the win. It wasn't just the end of a 3-game losing streak against ASU, but from my perspective, it was the end of a decade of frustration for Wildcat fans, because it had been 10 years since they'd been to a bowl game, and they knocked ASU out of a bowl game in the process. The return to relevancy on a national stage, because that game was on ESPN. Any favorite memories from that game that you can share, before, during, after, whatever?
Yeah, I think Mike Thomas's punt return was the dagger. That was at ASU. The games were always kind of bad vibes. Like, you always like, oh, something's going to go wrong. Like, there was weird expectations in the mid 2000s where somebody would step out of bounds instead of scoring a touchdown, or a game-winning or game-losing field goal. Or
Willie got hurt in a couple of those, if I remember right as well.
The injuries, I think in this game particularly, a bad memory of this game was us getting a punt, and my boy Keenan, I think he took a knee as he was catching the punt off the ground. So
that was ASU's only touchdown of the game off of that.
Exactly. So we were a really good defense, and we didn't enjoy giving points up, and sure enough, it was almost a here we go again moment, which we had to really block out. But when Mike, big game Hollywood Mike, Money Mike was special, and we needed special plays like that. And when the momentum shifted again, we quickly handled them that year. And I think that was the confidence that we had on our team. And I think that was the highlight for me, just seeing that. And then obviously, the presentation of going to the Vegas Bowl, for me, it was 4 or 5 years of kind of I think I had maybe like a 500 record of a lot of ups and then downs. So to see that kind of cement my career, and to hear that we were going to Vegas, and to see the coaches. I mean, there were a lot of coaches in tears, and I felt every bit of that. So I love those guys for that, and I understand why it's so important, and now I am a coach, so I really understand why it's so important. We pour so much into this profession, and it's fun to see it return in your favor.
There aren't a lot of plays I can still just picture in my head, but that punt return, because not only did he return it, but there were 2 big blocks on that play. Orlando Vargas leveled one, and then a freshman named Jaron Kreiner had the other one, and it was just so cathartic, and the crowd was just like, with every block, boom, boom, and it was.
And it was always I think he had like a couple of them that year, and it was always like on the sideline, just barely getting over somebody hurtling at the end, and it was, it's fun, man, because it's defense just got to stop, and you think you're tired, but then when you look up on the screen, or when you're watching it live, and you're like, you're just back jumping up on your feet. And you're like, hey, let's go again. Let's go get the ball back to the offense and give the ball back to Mike and let him do his thing. So good times.
All right, last question for you, and I'll let you go. Did you have any idea that Rob Gronkowski was going to be as great a player as he was? And any fun stories you can remember about him or his brother Chris who we've had on the show?
You know what? That's a loaded question. I will say this.
Maybe we can share some off air.
The coaches, yeah. Let's take that recording off. We'll get after it. No, I think we all knew Rob was different. The coaches, I think, knew a little bit more than the players. And there were times that Rob, I had to guard Rob or block or tackle Rob a lot through those years, and I never looked at him as a freshman. I mean, that was the cool thing about it, because the way he would run his routes and the way he could block, from a 18-year-old perspective, I'm 21, 22. I was, it's more like, hey, this is what it's going to look like against Cal. But never did I realize it was going to, just go that exponential into being the Gronk. But when he took over as a true freshman and made those plays, you knew there was something special there. And then obviously the injuries were always something a little spooky for not only for him, I'm sure, but for us and for our staff and our Bear Down family. But Rob and Chris were good peoples. No crazy Gronk stories I'm gonna give on the Zoom today, but there's a lot of fun moments, a lot of late nights hanging out with the boys. Chris and I were the same age, and actually Chris played linebacker before moving to offense. So we were road dogs for a little bit. Haven't seen him in a while, so hopefully the two can come back to these neck of the woods and we can hang out again. But man, it was a great time. I will say that it didn't go the way we wanted for the next few years after. I think we had maybe a top 10 ranking at one point, but there was some things that didn't go Stoops' way, and but we have no regrets. I think I'm sure if he could have done it again, maybe he would have handled some situations a little bit better, or maybe been a little bit more open or social. But the recruitment and the way that he brought some big time people around. I mean, there's still a lot of head coaches that are flourishing because of their time at Arizona, and there's a lot of great NFL careers and stories because of that era. So I'm just excited. I'm blessed to have been a captain and an all-conference player, or a part of that program, and it's just it was an honor.
I got one last one for you, Ronnie. I fortunate to count Rick Elmore and Callista Balco Elmore as friends, and they are one of the softball player and football player. Well, in addition to that, you and your wife Lauren can say the same, football player and softball player. What does it mean to her for you to be in this position and to be back in Tucson? Just kind of like old times.
Oh, it's special. Yeah, I would say, top memories and stuff from being here back in the day. I can say football memories all the time, but if it wasn't for that girl right there, man, she changed my life, and she is my best friend. So when we had the opportunity to kind of look at this job, we didn't care about money. We cared about who's it going to be around, and how fast can we get here. So. Unfortunately, my two daughters and Lauren will be here in December. They'll be at the games and stuff during the fall, but school, moving, all that good stuff is slowing down the process. For me, I'm showing up ready for spring ball, but it's a special time. I know Mike Kendrea was very excited to hear the news. I talked to him probably in the first couple of days I was in town. Tim Kish, big shout out to Coach Kish, because he's still in town. So I've spent time with Tim and his family and his wife and beautiful grandkids multiple times already. So there's a lot of good vibes, and I think there had to be to leave a really fun, unique head coaching job. And I do have plans on being a head coach again, but I think this opportunity to come back home was too good to be true, and to be around good people, and this moment and this junction and this amount of adversity, what more could you ask for? I think when I decided to come to Arizona, I didn't know they only won one conference game the year before. I didn't know about the sit-ins and the revolting, and I didn't know any of the history, but I knew the people, I knew the adversity, and I knew the agenda to build something, and I'm just honored to be able to do that again.
We're really glad to have you, Ronnie. Thanks for making your debut on Wildcat Country. Great to catch up with you. Thanks for hanging out with us for quite a while. We know you have a lot going on, obviously, with camp every day, but great talking with you. Have a great season, and look forward to having you back on here at some point.
Anytime, man. Bear down, fellas.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Shane, that was great with Ronnie Palmer. He was candid, great to go over some good memories from Arizona football back in the day, and gives you a little bit more enthusiasm for what's coming up with this year's team.
You know, it's funny. I actually got more into Arizona football and started following them more closely after I graduated, and a few years after that. I started just going to more games and just investing more emotionally in the team. I don't know why it worked out that way, but it just sort of did. And I love what Ronnie said about Brent Brennan and about him just being such an approachable guy and interesting. You know, because not every head coach is like that. And he mentioned that Mike Stoops wasn't really like that. Not that he was a bad guy, but he's just a different kind of guy. And Brent's door is always open. You know, he definitely, as cliche as it is to compare everyone to Dick Tomey, that really does kind of sound more like a Dick Tomey kind of coach, a guy who was that approachable and was about building relationships. So hopefully that translates into success. And like I said, I think Brent's made a lot of good moves in terms of his coaching staff, and adding Ronnie was definitely a great move as well.
So I have a gambling related question here for our final segment.
What?
Shocker, I know. What is your favorite Arizona bet on the board in terms of likelihood and in terms of value? And those can be the same or separate. Let me read for those of you. Well, I mean, we're all listening to this, so I have these written down, but I'll read them to you. First one, regular season wins, over 5.5 or under 5.5. And different odds. I mean, you guys don't, I won't go over that. I mean, it's close to.
Pretty even, though.
Yeah, pretty even. Games won. For Arizona to win 10 plus, they're 16 to 1. For them to win 8 plus, they are 4.5 to win. 4.5 to 1. For conference wins, the over 3.5 is plus 135. The unders minus 175. For home wins, same 3.5 line, over minus 125, under minus 105. There's a whole thing about exact wins, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, or 2 or fewer. 2 or fewer is 6 to 1. 7 is 6 to 1. 6 is 5 to 1. 5 is 4 to 1. 4 is 4 to 1. And 9 is 12 to 1. But I mean, I'm not going to.
I hope everyone's writing this down.
The last two here, Big 12 champion, they're 45 to 1, and to make the Big 12 title game, they are 20 to 1. Now that you can see this list in front of you, Shane, what is your favorite bet in terms of value? We'll start there. In terms of
How
value.
much money are we talking here? Like $5?
Let's say I handed you a $100 bill and said, you can take this to Harrah's Auction Casino and make these bets. If let's say the odds are on the board for Caesars, what would you do?
Well, in terms of value. Okay. If I have $100, I'm going to take $50 and put it on 5 exact wins, and 50 and put it on 6 exact wins. Or maybe I'd put 20 on 4 or something like that. But you have 4 to 1 on 5 wins or 5 to 1 on 6 wins. If you did 50 on each, I think you have a decent chance of at least doubling your money. I think I had them winning 5 games. You had them winning 6. I think one of those is likely. You want to split up a little bit more than maybe put a little money on 4 wins. I think 7 is you're kind of reaching there. So in terms of value, I'd probably go with one of those two: 5 wins or 4 wins.
I am taking.
I'm sorry, 5 wins or 6 wins.
I am, and you're taking 6 wins is 5 to 1, 5 wins is 4 to 1. If I'm taking that $100, I am putting it all on Arizona to win 6 games and go 6 to 6 at 5 to 1. Yep, that's what I'm doing. What's your favorite bet in terms of likelihood?
Yeah, it's tough. I would lean conference wins under 3.5 because and that's based on what I predicted last week. I think I had them winning 3 conference games. I did have them winning 3 conference. I think Arizona has a tough path to 4 conference wins, which we discussed last week. I just don't see 4 wins in that 9-game schedule as of now. And one of the, Eric, one of the games I had them winning at Cincinnati, you sort of talked me out of when you noted how cold and snowy it could be in Ohio in November, which you're absolutely right about, and I hadn't considered. So that was one of the wins I had them, and even with that, I had them at 3. And it's an odd numbered year, so that you only get 4 conference games at home because they play ASU on the road in odd numbered years. So none of them are slam dunks, but I would go with conference wins under 3.5 if I had to.
So mine is, I think this is a phenomenal bet. You can find this at DraftKings at -125. Home wins over 3.5. I had Arizona winning 5 games. I think if Arizona's going to get to 6 wins, they're going to win them at least 4 at home.
Yeah.
I think the home schedule with an Oklahoma State, Weber State, Hawaii, those are 3 right there. Can they upset Baylor? Can they beat Kansas? I have those there. Can they beat BYU? You can make an argument for Kansas. I mean, you can make an argument that Arizona could win any of their 7 home games this year. I think that is a slam dunk at over 3.5 home wins. If you are a bettor, whether you bet $10 or you bet $10,000, well, congrats to you. That's a bet I would partake in. Big time.
That's fair. That's fair. And I mean, that Weber State and Hawaii, we don't take anything for granted after what happened against NAU a few years ago. But that would get them halfway there. And they find a way to win two conference, whether it's Kansas State as an upset or any 2 of their actual conference games, half of them, and they get there. So no, that's legit. I just I don't. I'd have to go back and look and see who I actually had them beating. But I think if I'm thinking about it from like the more optimistic Arizona perspective, I think that I would agree with you because that's the bet I would probably take.
Yeah, I think that is great value. And for those of you who want to get something in, to bet on Arizona, I think that's the one that I would recommend. We've got, hey, listen, one more week before we're picking games. We'll have our buddy, I'm sure we'll have one of our buddies, Blair Willis, Jeff Dean, somebody's going to come on with us, Barrett Baker, talk, season preview, and then we'll break it down before Arizona plays Hawaii. So next week, we'll find out who's our magical guest here in the week before things, get fun. But Shane and I have some ideas. I don't know what he has stirred up there, but it's going to be fun. I'm really excited. I cannot believe that the summer is almost over and football season is almost here. I hope that you all are as excited as we are, regardless of how things are going to play out. And hey, listen, I mean, if it's not Arizona football, Arizona basketball, both men and women are going to make it very interesting this year.
Hopefully we're not asking, is it basketball season yet, until at least early November this year. I think that should be.
Well, it starts in early November. I mean, November 3rd is Arizona, Florida.
I know, but I mean, like we're actually just like kind of riding the football program off, hopefully we're a little further down the line. I mean, it was fun the year before last when, Arizona basketball was going in full, it was in full swing, and we're still excited about football because it just doesn't happen very often.
No. Just get to a bowl game this year. That's all we ask. All right, for Shane Dale and Eric, I can't even say. I'm so excited. I want to thank Ronnie Palmer for joining the show today. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.